Following video is an example of how to use account-based selling in the oil and gas industry. One of the things that is pretty popular out there, you hear a lot of people talking about account-based selling, and the concept is there's so much information out there today that sales reps can identify high-value accounts and do more research on that account to help them with their sales model. So I found on the web, what is account-based selling? The definition refers to it's a B2B scenario, and we're using specific tools, a model to predict target accounts and be most receptive to buying. So some of the things that we look at when we evaluate the account-based selling, I found another blog that talks about the 7 rules of account-based selling. One is to know when not to do account-based selling. So you have to begin with the end in mind. You have to have an idea of why you want to go ahead and use the account-based selling. 2, we want to do research on the account, on the target account. We want to identify the personas. What is it about the account that makes sense for it to qualify? And then we want to engage continuously. So lots of contacts. So we want to make sure that we're working the organization deep and wide. And we want to monitor and measure our activities associated to our account-based selling. And really important, we want to make sure that we have a message, a story that we want to tell that particular customer to say why we're targeting them and why we would be a better fit than potentially an existing customer that they're dealing with today. So what I did is I went on, and let's assume if I've got a bit of a story here, let's assume that I'm in the oil and gas services industry. And one of the values that I have as an organization is that I have multiple offices all over Western Canada. So the products and services that I offer are available in many different markets. So I can then make a decision for myself to say, oh, I want to go out and do some account-based selling based on accounts that have operations in multiple locations. So that would be an example of why I would want to use account-based selling versus traditional kind of territory selling or lead generation selling. So what I did is when we go through it, I started looking at a list of accounts, and when I'm going through the list of accounts, I'm going in and I'm reading some of the information about that account. And one of the things I found about Surge Energy when I went in and I looked at their current quarterly report, that they have 3 distinct areas. They've got the Shaunavon area, Valhalla, and Sparky Eye Hill area. So as soon as I see that, I realize that this is an account that could qualify for an ideal account for my account-based selling. So when I'm in my CRM and I go to Surge Energy, maybe one of the first things I want to do is tag this account as a hot account, or whatever ABS you can come up with, whatever terminology you want, to allow you, when you're creating a list view of accounts, to pull up and say, who are the accounts that I've decided to use an account-based selling approach. And the reason, again, that I'm targeting Surge is because they are running into 3 distinct areas, and they're telling me a lot about each one of these areas. The next step for me is I might want to visualize these areas. So we could see in my Enerlead product, and we come down, we could see here different areas that they've operated in, and then I can look down at most current area, and I could see that here's well licenses and wells that have been drilled, and I can see they've operated in this Valhalla area and Grand Prairie. They've got this Upper Shaunavon, and they've got the Provost. So we've got a mix of different well licenses and different times that they've been drilling. So I want to come over here and I want to take a look at a visual view of that. So when I come into my map, what my map allows me to do is I could come in and I could say, okay, well, let's take a look on the map where they have been drilling lately. And then we could take a look at the 3 different areas that show up on the map, and then we can identify those areas here by looking at the different locations. So when I click in and I take a look at a specific record, here I see the Upper Shaunavon. So when I come back and I take a look at the information that I put together, I can then go into the Shaunavon area and I could say they've drilled 8 consecutive wells. Again, when I come back to my mapping, you can see that that is where the highest density of the drilling has been. And then in those drilling, they're tying in a well average of less than 1.25 million, down 43%, from a cost of 2 million. And they're also using here further capital reduction, a monobore technology to help them to be more successful. So now I have an idea of what I need to do with this particular area. So again, I've come in, I'm looking for accounts that have multiple locations. Here are multiple locations, and then I'm looking for, I'm going to take an account-based approach. So I want to know what each area is doing, some of the challenges they have in the area, and the things that we can do to help them with those areas. I also come over here and I see the Valhalla, and it says Surge has completed the company's strategic infrastructure project, tying in a 12 MCF of gas in that particular area. I can come over to my map and say, okay, well, let's take a look at what they've done from an infrastructure perspective, and then I could see up here is where they've been putting the infrastructure, and this is the type of infrastructure that they've been putting in. So I now have sorted out the key areas related to this particular account, and I can start putting my strategy together from an account-based selling perspective. How am I going to be able to help them out? What does my office in this area offer when they're doing this? And what I can see up here, they talked about these are oil batteries, but they put in strategic gas. So we've got some oil with a lot of gas up here. So what is it about my particular products and services in this location that would help them out there? When we look at this particular marketplace that they're talking about here, Sparky Hill, we can kind of come through it, and when I read through this, I see that they're doing a lot of water flood in this particular area, and I see what their total costs are associated to drilling in that area. So I could say, what can I do to help them from a water flood perspective in this area? How can I help them achieve the drilling objectives that they've set out for themselves? The next thing I might want to do when we look at this is when I'm doing account-based selling, one of the things I can do in my CRM is I can leverage the ability to create sales opportunities. So I might want to come in here and say, okay, I want to create 3 different sales opportunities for myself, and I'm going to take the Shaunavon area first, and then I'm going to come over to my Salesforce, the account record for Surge Energy, and then we can come in and I can create a new opportunity here, and then I can put this in as the area that I'm interested in. So I've come in and I've created this, and I'm going to put in here my short description and my name. And one of the things I'm going to do from a type perspective is I'm going to tag this as ABS, and I don't really know when this thing is going to close, so I move the date way out, and then I come in and I'm in my qualification stage. So now I've set up the framework for this specific location that I'm focusing on, and I'll come in and I'll save this, and I'll pick the product family that I'm going to put in there. I've now created that sales opportunity for myself. So I know that I'm looking at the Shaunavon area. Their wells are driving down the costs, and I know I can put in I could go in and I could put a bit more of a description from a geographic perspective, so I have that reference when I look at the mapping area. I know this is the area down here. I might want to put that description into my opportunity. Then the next thing I do when I'm looking at the account-based selling, some of the rules that we have on the account-based selling is that we want to come in and we want to go engage continuously, an important component. So when I come into Surge in my CRM, I have all the contacts that are associated with it, and I can look down these contacts and I can find different people that are associated to it, this particular location, and I can identify what roles that these people play in that organization. So now when I come in and I've said to myself, here's one of the target areas that I have an idea based on what they're trying to do, the characteristics of that area, my capabilities in that area, how I would like to position myself. Then I look at the people that I'm dealing with in that area to ensure that I'm able to engage those people. So again, when we look back at our 7 rules of account-based selling, is we want to engage continuously, and we want to measure our activities. How is that coming along? And we also want to personalize our content. So as I go in, I start sending emails and I'm setting up calls, those types of things. I'm continuously going in to this particular location and specializing that content specifically for the customer. The other thing that I quite often want to do is I might want to come in here and take a look at who my competitors are in this specific location here. So depending on the products and services that I'm offering, if I come back to the Surge account and we know that we're targeting the Shaunavon area here, I might want to come in and see if I can identify wells that they've drilled there recently and then say who is it that I might be competing with. So maybe I have some type of drilling services. I would say, okay, that's somebody that might be some competition for me. I can then come down preparing, researching, identifying, or collecting that through my calls, and I can come in here and I can say my competitor is, put in my competitor, and I can fill out my competitive analysis associated with that. I can also look at this area and say, hey, are there partners that I would be associated with in this area? So not only do I have competitors, do I also have people that I would be competing against in this particular region? So again, when I come back and I look at the account record, I could come in and say, hey, TriStar is actually a good partner of mine, somebody that I'm dealing with from an account perspective. I could come in and I could say that these guys are a partner and identify what role that they play from a partnership perspective. All of this is early. I have not even made a sales call yet. I've gone in and I've done that market research. That's the whole concept behind account-based selling. I'm saying to myself, I've identified this account because it's operating in multiple locations. I took a look and I've broken out those locations. I understand them, what their business objectives are. I come in and I create 3 separate opportunities that are all account-based selling. I'm in the qualification stage. I do an audit on the people that I know there and I associate them to those specific locations. And I also take a look organizationally and figure out if I identify some of the key partners and some of the competitors associated with it. I'm going to go through the process of engaging these customers and positioning myself in these 3 different locations. What is it that I can offer that particular solution for the customer? So that's an example when we look at Surge Energy, how we go ahead and we do account-based selling. One, we identify the accounts. We identify what it is that makes us unique and why that account would qualify for account-based selling. In my case, I have offices all over Western Canada. I identified 3 key areas that they're looking in. I look at my rules of account-based selling. It's based around using market research. We come in and we identify the areas so we fully understand those areas and what it is that they're doing in the areas and how we can help them. And then we leverage our CRM to set up early stage sales opportunities related to each one of those areas. And after we've set up the early stage sales opportunities, we go through the process of associating who the key people are that we're talking to, who some of the partners are that could help us in that area and in the other areas that we've targeted, and some of the competitors that we might be dealing with at that particular time as well. That's an example of how you can use account-based selling within a Surge Energy.